To our first story, and an Accra High Court has sentenced 3 former members of the National Communications Authority Board to a total of 16 years for their roles in the purchase of cybersecurity equipment valued at $4 million.
The 3, a former board chairman of the NCA, Eugene Bafobani, was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. William Tete TV, a former Director General of the NCA, was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, and Alhaji Salifu Mimina Osman, a former Deputy National Security Coordinator, received 5 years imprisonment, all in hard labor. The trial judge, Justice Eric Che Bafo, also ordered the confiscation of assets of each of the convicts to the tune of $3 million.
Mr. William Tevi and Alhaji Osman were found guilty on charges of conspiracy to willfully causing financial loss to the state, contravention of the Public Procurement Act, and internationally misapplying public property. However, they were acquitted and discharged on the charge of stealing, conspiracy to steal, and using a public office for personal benefits. The former board chairman, Mr. Eugene Bafoboni, was found guilty of conspiracy to willfully causing financial loss to the state, a contravention of the Public Procurement Act, internationally misapplying public property, and using a public office for profit. A businessman, Mr. Derek Opong, was however acquitted and discharged of all charges against him. Also, another accused person, Nana Owusu Ensao, was acquitted and discharged by the Court of Appeal before today's judgment. The trial of the 5 former employees of the National Communications Authority began in 2018, spanning 2 years, 5 months. Their prosecution and conviction was over their involvement in the misappropriation of $4 million of state funds during the purchase of listening devices for the national security, which was sponsored by the NCA. They also faced 16 charges, including conspiracy to steal, stealing, and using public office for profit, among others. During their defense, the convicts denied all the charges leveled against them, insisting that the equipment was purchased for the NSCS as requested. They also denied the charge of benefiting from the purchase of the equipment. The prosecution during trial called 6 prosecution witnesses, namely Director of Legal Affairs at NCA, Abna Safweje, Deputy Director General in charge of Management and Operations, Dr. Isaac Yao Eni, Director of Operations at the National Security Secretariat, Colonel Michael Kojopoku, Deputy National Security Coordinator, Mr. Duncan Opare, and the investigator of the case, Directive Chief Inspector, Mr. Michael Nkrumah.
President Akufo-Addo has inaugurated the newly constructed 4-block Douala Barracks accommodation facility for the Ghana Armed Forces at Burma Camp in Accra.
It has 64 2-bedroom residential units. The president handed the flats over to the authorities in charge at Burma Camp.
The Douala Barracks regeneration project involved the rehabilitation and upgrade of the barracks and living quarters along with the necessary infrastructure across the country. The first brick for the project was laid in August 2017 after a sword cutting ceremony. It is the first group of buildings to be completed and also the first group of story buildings under the program. The Douala Barracks regeneration project has 4 blocks each with 16 2-bedroom flats. 64 families will occupy these 64 apartments. The Chief of the Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Obed Akwa, and the Minister for Defense, Mr. Dominic Nittle, extended appreciation to government for the facility.
We also take note of the commencement of work at the Islembo Forward Operating Base, the transformational works at the Ghana Military Academy, the sports complex in 6th Garrison, the planned acquisitions to enhance our border security, and the innumerable welfare packages we have received.
Accommodation structures at a cost of $100 million United States dollars has commenced within all the garrisons. Currently, 642 two-bedroom units and 12 four-story two-bedroom flats, like what you see, and other infrastructure development are ongoing across all garrisons under the Barracks Regeneration Program.
President Akufo-Addo commended the Ghana Armed Forces for their contribution to the national call to duty to fight the spread of the coronavirus.
It is appropriate on this occasion that I express my gratitude and that of the nation to the excellent Chief of Defense Staff, the hard-working officers, men and women of the armed forces, for responding to my call to help in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. I'm proud of your exceptional diligence and vigilance in ensuring that the protocols and restrictions I outlined were complied with, especially during the 3-week partial lockdown of Accra, Kumasi, Tema, and Kaswa. You have been at the forefront of the battle to tackle this national emergency, and your efforts have been laudable in the areas of medical support, logistics chain management, the enforcement of the restrictive measures, and operations on land, sea, and air. Your cooperation with the other security agencies has been exemplary.
It was in 2017 that the President launched the Barracks Regeneration Project to bridge the gap in accommodation for the Ghana Armed Forces. The construction of these facilities is going to be balanced across all garrisons.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, says that digitization infrastructure that has been developed in Ghana in the past 3 years will help make Ghana meet the demands of the new norm post-COVID-19. When he launched the Microfinance and Small Loan Center MassLock's integrated ICT system and MassLock card, Dr. Bawumia said digitization will be the new world order, and with what government has done, Ghana will seamlessly function in that space.
The MassLock integrated ICT system will ensure fast, easy and reliable disbursement of loans to the targeted group and their repayment.
Finance and Small Loans Center MassLock is a microfinance apex body that implements government microfinance programs and targeted at reducing poverty. MassLock also helps with startups and assists SMEs to expand their businesses through fast, easy and accessible microcredit. Since 2017, MassLock has disbursed more than 115 million cedis to over 97,000 people. After several years of manual operations, MassLock has now gone digital with the introduction of the MassLock integrated ICT system. This system will minimize the bureaucratic nature of loan distribution, monitor applicants, and also ensure prompt repayment of loans, and is a collaboration with ARB Apex Bank and Eben Capital. There is also the MassLock card, which will run on the ARB Apex Bank platform. It will enable applicants to make withdrawals at any rural and community bank in their community. This is to help cut down on cash in the system. The CEO of MassLock, Mr. Stephen Amwa, believes the new system is better for the disbursement of loans.
This platform will enhance operations, administration work, disbursement recovery, and ensure efficiency in managing our resources. It is going to be useful to other state organizations such as MMDAs, NBSSI, and other MFIs in the country. The center has disbursed about 115,600,000 Ghana cedis to about 97,195 beneficiaries. The percentage of female beneficiaries is about 83% in fulfillment of the President's policy of disbursing at least 50% of MassLock funds to women.
The Minister for Finance, Mr. Henrietta, described the new platform as a prudent way to fair distribution.
Even as we begin to look at issues like the 600 million we are going to disperse, people get worried about, well, is it going to be fair? Is it not going to be fair? And the beauty of technology is that it cuts across, and everybody has a chance to be able to do that. So really want to congratulate MassLock for this. We'll do our best to put some liquidity into it.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, said the new platform will help track, ensure accountability, and distribute loans fairly to the poor who need the funds, not by political affiliation.
There's a huge element of transparency that is being introduced into the operations of MassLock through digitization, and therefore a huge element of accountability. So it's a major transformation that we are witnessing today.
He said such platforms will be critical for transactions post-COVID-19.
Ghana is already on course as far as the digitization effort is concerned, with mobile money, interoperability, mobile money accounts, the Ghana Link card, the eSwitch card, the QR code, Ghana Instant Pay. So you are seeing that the architecture that Ghana is putting in place has prepared us very, very well for the post-COVID-19 global economy.
Directors of MassLock are upbeat about the integrated ICT system and card. They say it will modernize the disbursement of funds in a more transparent, reliable and swift manner.
Law Professor Henrietta Mensah has suggested that the retirement age of university lecturers be changed from 60 to 70. She says most lecturers at the age of 60 are still strong and must have students under their tutelage.
The Supreme Court nominee also called for a proper definition of what amounts to corruption to deal with it as a crime when need be. Professor Mensah was answering questions from the Appointments Committee of Parliament following her nomination to the Apex Court.
Until her nomination, Professor Mensah was on a post-retirement contract at the Faculty of Law at the University of Ghana. When she appeared before the Appointments Committee, she spoke about corruption, the retirement age of university lecturers, and the required marriageable age of girls.
Don't you think that it is time for us to stick to our law? If we think that the best time for children to be able to do that is 18, let them marry and the consent to sex be synchronized.
It's not neat and tidy, but you don't want to let 16-year-olds marry. Nor can you police that they should only have sex when they are 18.
On inheritance, she said the interstate succession law is in default state and encouraged everyone to make a will before death to ensure that those deserving of their properties inherit them.
I always tell people, in fact, that making a will is a responsible act, because you know that once you've been born, you will die. When you are traveling from Asawasi to Accra, I don't know where the family is based, you tell them what to eat, you tell them who to go to when there's need for money so that you can reimburse. You give them all these instructions. When you are going away forever, then you just go and leave the state which doesn't know your domestic arrangements and your domestic pressures to make arrangements. The arrangements would be unsuitable to your particular lifestyle.
She said the National Peace Council has contributed immensely to the peace in the country and needs more support from government to function better. She also says education on peace must begin at the basic level so that children can learn to resolve conflicts in their formative years.
A nominee to the Supreme Court, Mr. Emmanuel Yoni-Kolendi, says it will not be beneficial to cap the number of judges to the Supreme Court.
Mr. Kolendi also advocated for reforms to the country's legal education system to license more schools to absorb the high number of students who want to read law. He was answering questions put to him by Parliament's Appointments Committee.
Mr. Emmanuel Yoni-Kolendi says it is wrong for any suspect to be kept in police custody for more than the stipulated 48 hours. He shared his thoughts on capital punishment and the right of the appeals and Supreme Courts.
From my experience as a practitioner, this outright door, as of right, to the Supreme Court, literally in some cases opens a floodgate into the court, and therefore, however frivolous a party's case may be, and however compelling a decision and reasoning of a trial court and an appellate court may be, the party can automatically access the highest court of the land. This has occasioned, if you want, a lot of traffic and jam in the Supreme Court. It's a right that citizens ought to have, but it is amenable to abuse.
If you were given the responsibility to take out some of the provisions in the Constitution, would you consider this provision as a candidate to be taken out?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, not in its entirety. I will consider or recommend some process, some filtering, in order that we can ward off frivolous and vexatious appeals. There is some filtering in relation to certain matters, but not in its entirety, because you are balancing the right of the citizen to have audience before the final and highest court of the land with the need to ensure and insulate the system from abuse by vexatious, frivolous, and mischievous litigants and lawyers. And in that balance, we have to be careful not to preclude people who may have very legitimate causes from being able to engage the wisdom of the wise men up there.
In his early years of practice, Mr. Kolendi had some tutelage at the legal firm of Akufo-Addo, Prempeh & Co. This is his response when asked how he will handle a case involving the sitting president.
If you look at the tenets of that oath, it's a sacred pledge to the Ghanaian people, to God, and to your conscience, that you will do right by all manner of men who appear before you without fear, favor, or ill will, and that you will show fidelity to the Constitution, the law, and be true to your conscience in your role. By the grace of God, you approve me for this job, and a matter comes before me that involves one or any of such persons, I will have to engage the considerations of my oath, the considerations of conflict of interest, the considerations of bias, and due fidelity to the law.
He agreed with the need for reforms in the country's legal education. Mr. Kolendi gave his opinion on the European ceiling philosophy with regards to the number of judges to the Supreme Court.
I'm an advocate of an open limit because a constitution must allow flexibility, it must be forward-looking,
it must have structure that enables it to respond to the needs of the people at various points in time as the circumstances of society change. And to have a ceiling is to box yourself.
Mr. Kulendi said until the judiciary can support its own financial needs, it cannot enjoy total independence. Until his nomination, Mr. Emmanuel Joni Kulendi was the founder and managing solicitor at Kulendi Law. He was called to the bar in 1994.
Over 30 nurses and midwives in Ghana have tested positive to the COVID-19 disease. An additional 250 health personnel are under quarantine due to their exposure to confirmed cases of COVID-19.
And the number of positive cases is feared to rise if adequate measures are not put in place. These are the concerns of the president of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. She was speaking during the celebration of this year's International Nurses Day and the GRNMA at 60 in Accra.
World focuses on the International Nurses Day each year. It highlights their unique roles in the healthcare system. It is also a time to take stock of the activities of these critical workers. This year's celebration also coincided with the 60th anniversary of the GRNMA. At a media launch in Accra, the president of the association, Mrs. Perpetual Oforiampofo, spoke about the condition under which nurses and midwives work. She says a greater number of their members work under severe physical and psychological conditions that predisposes them to infections. Also, over 30 nurses and midwives have so far been affected with the COVID-19 and some 250 currently under quarantine. The worrying factor, according to the GRNMA president, is that the majority of the infected were not frontline workers but had duties in ordinary units.
Within this period of COVID-19, the major challenge is the issue about the unavailabilities of PPEs. And the next thing is the fact that you are dealing with cases, suspected cases that you may never know whether the patient has it or not. And therefore the issue about the fear of the COVID, the anxieties that come with it and all that is also impacting on the work that we do. Because some are on quarantine, it has also left some gap in staffing levels at various facilities, and there's the need to also employ more nurses to also bridge that gap.
A Deputy Minister for Health, Mr. Bernard Okuboy, thanked nurses and midwives in the country for their dedication and service to humanity.
As at close of 2019, we had given clearance, recruited 36,661 nurses, both certificates, diplomas, all the categories. Never have we seen in so short a time had a government employed so many or given so much clearances. And because we know we still have to close the deficit, this year we are looking at doing a minimum 20,000 nurses in terms of financial clearance, a minimum 20,000 nurses.
The 2020 International Nurses Day has the theme, Striving for Universal Healthcare, a Voice to Lead. Gifty J, GBC News, Accra.
We have more stories from around our country and from beyond our shores. We'll be right back.